Welcome back everybody. Today I'm pretty excited because I'm back here at Concrete Wave Skate Park. Now last time out I worked on getting a backside 50-50 grind in the deep end of the pool. Now this is something I've been dreaming about doing for a fair few years, and managing to make a few exceeded my wildest expectations. Now what I'm usually tempted to do at this point is move on to the next trick or the next idea and keep the stoke levels going. But I found that's a bit of a false economy because I don't consolidate any of the work that I've done. And when I end up coming back to the trick a few months later, there is absolutely no way I can do it and I end up back at square one. So I think my idea for today's session is to change it up and try and consolidate some of the work I've done on the backside 50-50 grind in the deep end. So I started thinking of various strategies I could use to consolidate my work on the backside 50-50. The first idea was to try and put this backside 50-50 into a run. So set up out of the shallow end with a frontside 50-50 grind, down over that hip, and then into the backside 50-50. Now this seems like a pretty simple idea, but I have to say I made a right meal of it and I entered into a good sized battle. I think the main thing I struggled with here is I haven't done a frontside 50-50 grind in the shallow end for quite a while. So I just didn't have the consistency to make it out of those frontside 50-50 grinds every time. This pretty much halved the amount of attempts I had to try the backside 50-50 grind, and that coupled with my inconsistency, it really made for a lengthy and frustrating session. I think for this backside 50-50 grind in the deep end to be of any use, I need to be able to put it into a run. But today I'm going to backtrack and just work on the consistency of trying to get the backside 50-50 grind more often than not. So the first thing I'm going to attempt is to try and do 2 backside 50-50 grinds in a row. If I can get 3 in a row, we'll be cooking. So I'm going to attempt these out of a drop in and see if I can get as many in a row as possible. So my next goal after I start riding away from a few is to concentrate on my exit. Last time I found I got such a surge of adrenaline when I made one that I just hit the next wall and jumped off. So I'm going to have to visualise getting past making the 50-50 grind and coming out and doing something on that next wall. Obviously another 50-50 grind would be the dream, but I think just a backside carve would work nicely and set me up to do another trick in the shallow end. And to finish up, the icing on the cake would be to do the frontside 50-50 grind in the shallow, do the backside 50-50 grind, and then find a way out of that deep end. Anyway, enough of my yakking. It's starting to look worryingly stormy, so I'm going to quickly put my pads on, see if I can make my first backside 50-50 grind of the day. Okay, I just managed to get my pads on and the heavens opened. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm going to get the squeegee and the towel out. It looks like this is the only little rain shower of the day, hopefully. Okay, it's turned out today is not going to be the day. Managed to get about 7 or 8 goes after I dried it. Came away with a couple of decent grinds. So that's progress, but I'm going to have to wait until the next session to really work on consolidating that deep end 50-50. I also banged my knee pretty hard coming back in to the transition on the knee slide on one of those. So I'm going to go away, ice up, and then come back for the next session and keep working on it. Okay, I'm back for session 2 and the weather is looking a lot more promising. I'm going to get straight into it and see if I can get this grind going. I'm going to be mindful when I come off the grind of not just jumping off with the adrenaline and trying to make a backside carve on the opposite wall. My goal is to see if I can get out of the deep end and get back into the shallow end after executing a grind. Okay, managed to make quite a few in and also made it out of the deep end. A couple of things were happening to start with. I was really mindful of keeping my front shoulder in line with the coping, and I think I was overcooking it, and I kept locking in with both heel side wheels on the coping going round, and it felt a little bit out of control. I didn't feel comfortable coming back in from that position. I think with a little bit more practice I'll be able to come in from both heel side wheels locked in on the coping, but I still prefer the cross lock. When I eventually made it out of the deep end, it was all about getting my feet correct as I came back in and then pumping the other wall and just bringing my shoulder around for that backside carve. And then I found I could pump up the hip and get back into the shallow end. In the last video, I got a few comments about using the knee slide. And on this transition, it's so tight, I find it really tricky to get into it with a knee slide. I'm 6'3", it's a little bit tricky. But I was mindful on this session to see if I could get it to work, and I found if I got down nice and low and bent my knees, I could get in there and do a half decent knee slide out. The one thing that I found was a bit of an issue was just catching my toes on the coping as I went in, and on one of those I sort of got flipped up, which was a little bit unsettling. But I think with speed, going sideways and staying low and bending my knees, I can get a half decent knee slide coming out. My next goal is to work on everything I've done so far, so that's come up, do a grind in the shallow end, come down, do a grind in the deep end, and then make it out of the deep end and continue my run, maybe do a rock to fakie in the shallow end. Okay, that's it for this video. That was a lot of fun. I feel like these drills really helped me to consolidate my progress, help me focus on doing lots more and make a lot more of the 50-50 grind. Also, it helped me get it into some sort of functioning state where I could come out of a grind and then carry on my run. I found it really tricky because it introduced so many more opportunities for things to go wrong. Coming out of that frontside 50, my feet could go a bit odd, or I could come off the grind a little bit slowly, and then that would muck up my chances to get the grind in the deep end. Also, if something went a little bit awry in the grind on the deep end, it meant that I couldn't really go for the backside carve and make it out of the deep end. So it really forced me to do everything as well as I could and to keep my technique as solid as possible. I found that when I tried to link the grinds together, it really gave me that added incentive to go for it in the deep end. And a couple of times I really overcooked it and went a cropper. The last one I banged my thigh on the coping and gave myself a real dead leg. So I'm gonna have to call it a day. But I'm gonna keep on working on this 50-50 grind. I managed to get 3 in a row eventually, and I think if I come back next time, it will get steadily easier. I'll make more in a row and I'll get to making them a bit quicker. If you're working on consolidating a trick, let us know about it in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, you can also hit subscribe. I make new videos every week. You can also follow me on Instagram @JohnBishopSkate. As ever, my name's been John Bishop, and I'll see you next time.